what we've noticed is there are videos online of how to make a perfect worm bin, but I'm not seeing too much about some of the things that are going wrong. Here's the top of our worm bin. Just 2 days ago we didn't have these holes, so I heated up a wire coat hanger, I don't know if that's the best method in the world, and burned holes through because I didn't want to use a drill. I was too lazy. And I think the worms need a little more air. And then our worm bin, we didn't put in enough bedding, I don't believe. And what happened was the top of the bedding that we had in there were fruit flies flying around, and now they're flying out. I can see them as I lift up the paper. And we added some homework on top to contain the fruit flies. I think what we should have done is added more shredded paper. And a lesson learned is the shredded paper you get from the shredder, be careful because that stuff compacts when you dampen it. It's supposed to be as damp as a wrung out sponge, and ours was as damp as a wrung out sponge, but for some reason it was matted. So what we're going to do today is we're going to add more bedding to the bottom and to the top of the worm bin. And let's look and see if the worms are doing any work. And you can see we don't have enough bedding in the bottom. There's probably not enough air flowing through, and I've got a lot of fruit flies. If we have putting in, limiting the citrus, then I think our worm bin will do a lot better. In order to dampen the bedding, which could be shredded paper, whether you're going to use shredded paper from the shredder or newspaper that you've shredded up, a great way to do this instead of doing it in the bin itself or in your hand is to take a big bowl and to dump water on top and then toss it like a salad. Toss it so that everything gets as damp as a wrung out sponge. You don't want the paper to mat. If it starts matting up, then you've got a problem. You want to make sure that when you're shredding newspaper, shred it, but don't let several of the pages stick together because you'll just have one big solid mass. And the goal here is to make a bedding that allows air to flow through so the worms can get oxygen.
Good job, Mom.
What are you going to add to the compost? What do you think they would like to eat today?
Maybe tomatoes.
Tomatoes. What else? What are you eating right now?
Watermelon is my favorite fruit.
Should we throw it in one big piece, or what do you do with it before you throw it in?
You chop it up in super small pieces.
Chop it up in super small pieces. The smaller the better?
Yup.
All right. Sounds like a plan. Try to stay away from colored paper, magazines. That's a no-no. And I do have a little bit of color in this paper, so maybe technically it wouldn't be all organic, but I'm not going to sweat it because this is our first worm bin. I'm not going to be a perfectionist. The other reason why you want to have another cover underneath your worm bin is to catch the liquid that may come out if the environment is too wet. And this will allow you to make your worm tea. Compost tea, which many believe is the best stuff, whether it's from manure, from cows, horses, chickens, or from worms. And you'll get a different story depending on who you talk to, which is best. So once you've loaded your worm bin full of bedding on the bottom and on the top, about 3/4 of the way full, and this will serve as the bedding from now until the end when you get your finished compost, about 3 months from now, 2 to 3 months. So remember, when you're adding food, you don't want to add too many brown items like toast, paper, things like that. They've already got enough of that in here. So what we're going to add today, Lauren, is some lettuce and one of Lauren's favorite fruits of all time that she just ate, and she told me to chop it up really fine. What was that again?
Watermelon.
Watermelon. So Lauren, where do we add the food? And this is a really good gauge of how much food 1 pound of worms can eat in a day. We've taken this small container, and what we do is we heap it full of food, and this is how much we add. Every 24 hours the worms can eat this much food if they're healthy and if you have enough worms, large worms, in your bin. So where do we put it, Lauren? Do we put it on top?
Underneath, let it rot.
Underneath, let it rot. So you're going to go underneath your top layer of bedding And this is where you'll start scattering your food.
We can compost up, we can compost down, we can compost everywhere upside down. And I have another one too. I can compost up, I can compost down, I can compost everywhere with it just upside down.
Have enough bedding on the bottom and enough bedding on top, covering up the food that we're